Primal The Awakening was already one of the best boss battlers, especially from a cinematic boss versus hero style games in the first place. Now you're telling me that there's more content that kind of makes this game a little bit of a new game in the first place? Extra content to go along with what you already have to give you new ways to play and new dynamics to manage. Let's talk what we've got on our hands here. So Primal The Awakening is back. It's bigger, it's meaner, it's more expensive. But does this wave of expansions improve the game? Let's talk about what's brilliant, what's questionable, and what these expansions are offering, and whether or not they are worth your money. For anyone unfamiliar with Primal The Awakening, let's go over it in a 60 seconds. What do you need to know? This is it. Primal is the cooperative boss battling where every fight is self-contained. You face massive monsters managing action decks, stamina and resource economy, character synergies, as well as a position versus monster behavior, in addition to a combo-driven, card-based time system. You circle around the monster on a terrain, and you use your card-driven combos to take out the boss before they take you out, with a campaign mode, with an individual battle mode, with the original Nightmare variant mode, and plethoras of different bosses and expansions in the first run. Think Monster Hunter meets Gloomhaven, except it hits hard, plays fast, and feels incredibly tactical. It's a boss battler with no trash mobs, player-controlled monsters with AI decks, different hero roles in the forms of weaponry, which each is giving you a different asymmetric option in card play as well as combos, stances to go along with that to change combos in the first place, campaign progression to give you more gear and upgrades as you go along, with forging them as you do, and escalating phases to give you more of a larger cinematic feel, if you will. So what do we have here in front of us? We have the Heart of the Wild, the character side of the new expansions. You're getting 2 new character types in the form of a spear bearer and a war drum. And you're going, Chris, what the hell? Why would I want a spear bearer or a war drum? First and foremost, both of these are giving you new keywords. They're giving you new ways to affect the monster, but also to interact with your compatriots around the table, as this is a cooperative game. The Spear Bearer gives you a new piercing strategy that will be escalating as you go up on the value on your player card. As you can see here, Zarya is your Spear Bearer, unleashing these piercing attacks that build up over the course of the fight. If you play consecutive maneuvers, her pierce level increases by 1. When you have the pierce level, you can choose to do the pierce damage instead of your normal base weapon damage. But if you do, you have to reset this back down to beginning. Her weapons indicate the special piercing level at the bottom as well. And let's be clear, the artwork on this, again, is freaking outstanding. And both of these heroes are compatible with all of the other expansions if you have them, to give you ways of integrating them both alongside. Let's flip over to Drusk here. And Chris, you're going, War Drum? What the hell? Why would I want a... Okay, this is my favorite type of character. I love this character because I love being the support with a little damage. I love being the fear-based spirit in Spirit Island. So War Drum is right up my alley. And the difference in War Drum is you are going to be following the rhythm of the vibe that you're throwing down. Because you also have a vibe track, a rhythm track down here, that you'll be doing very similarly, upgrading as you're playing cards in the right way to aid your allies around the table, allowing them to combo the amount of damage that they are able to do depending on the level in which it's at. We're talking 2 or even 6 times the amount of the damage that's done if you're at the higher levels. That's insane. This is inspiration D&D in the card game format here, and it's awesome. Subsequently, with all this new stuff though, we have a bunch of new keywords: copy, guard, reclaim, recycle, and resonance. And so some of these are going to be more or less used depending on whether or not you want this in the first place. It doesn't add to the complexity, but it adds the variety if you're looking for it or you're familiar with a lot of the keywords in the base game of how the abilities are managed on a player-by-player basis. And they're really straightforward. Copy, recycle, discard to draw, reclaim, get a card back from your discard pile. Guard, somebody else plays a card, well, you can discard a guard card to make that cost 0 for them. So all in all, as you're skimming through this deck, looking at the maneuvers, the resonance, the copy, just, again, an extra layer of everything that you're familiar with on the positive and the negative, it's not bringing you anything drastically different, but it's giving you a good step in if you don't have some of the other characters in the first place. And again, as a major support person in a lot of games, I love the war drum as a non-traditional trope playing in this, and it works very well. Oh, and in case you want to see the miniatures, yeah, he's got a freaking drum. We're not even carrying it. We're putting it on the ground because we're so OP. Let's go back to these 2 big boxes for a second. The artwork on these, again, is outstanding. I freaking love it. But these are just card boxes, card dividers. So do you need them? Maybe, depending on how much of a neat freak you are, because you can sleeve all of these as well, and this gives you plenty of place to put them, especially if you didn't get the first one the first time around. Now, in case this game wasn't hard enough, this little box is all for you. In case you have all of the originals and you want to make it all more difficult, we've got Nightmare Mode Numero Dos, because we're getting 6 new cards in the form of Nightmare variants, along with 9 more AI-driven deck behavior cards for each of the 13 monsters previously. Yeah, if this game wasn't hard enough for you, this is going to make it way too hard, and it's probably going to be an overshoot for a vast majority of you. However, if you are an Ultimate Challenge person, you can combine this even with the Hunters expansion previously to get as many points as you can to be the best hunter on the block. We've got new stances, we've got new behaviors. Again, for all 13 of the previous monsters that were in the game and the expansions. However, it does give you different cards for different levels of the monster you're fighting, so arguably it is going to be the toughest challenge that this game can provide with all of those previous monsters to give you new iterations, new variations, and new dynamics, but going to just ramp up the difficulty. I love the small box size, but it's probably the least necessary of all this content unless you have absolutely maximized out the hell of the base game and the expansions previously. Now we come to the core crux of things, the most variability, replayability, and dynamics that are going to, well, give you your money's worth. And this is what I've got in store for you. New biomes, right? You have the Goldarks and Thunder Mountains biome. Just kidding. We've got 5 different freaking biomes that are playmats to give you different dynamics on the table. And yes, they're actual playmats, neoprene-wise, with different dynamics, different effects, as well as 2 of them actually having different tokens that you're going to be having to deal with as you populate your hunters on there alongside the boss. So what do you do with these biomes, right? You just replace the board in which you're playing on, still do the same terrain setup, and give the dynamics that this is going to offer an additional upgrade or challenge. So again, I would say this is definitely before the Nightmare mode. If you didn't think I was going to talk about them individually, well, let's talk about them for a second. You have the Crystal Caverns in front of us, and on the back side, because they're all double-sided, you have the Flooded Waters. What you've got going on here with this expansion being one of the 2 that uses tokens is you've got the crystals falling from the ceiling, landing in the different areas, aiding you, actually, well, until a certain point, because they're going to be usable to reduce the stamina that's necessary for your hunters as you're in those areas. However, you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner, there's a problem because the 7, 8, and 9 are kind of cracked out because the game ends after round 6. So, big blessing, but you better do it quick. On the opposite side, we have a different dynamic here because you're going to be putting water tokens down. So it's not always deep water, but when these tokens are in these areas, in rounds 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10, it goes to deep water, doing a similar but slightly different effect than the regular water, limiting your card play to 3, also reducing your hand size by 1. Now, next up, Nizmaraga and the Sunset Plains. What we've got going on here in this double-sided board is we have Nizmaraga. And this is going to be different because, again, you can see along the action tracker, you have to, at the end of every round, discard a card, an action card that matches this. Otherwise, take damage equal to your enemy's current aggression level. On the flip side, you've got the Sunset Plains, which again are going to do something different, as you can see here in rounds 2, 5, and 8. Yeah, I'm not turning it the right way. You can read numbers upside down, just like I can. But what happens here, and what makes this so tricky and difficult, is it completely throws your strategy off kilter, even though it's only 3 rounds. We've already shown you 3 others that are affecting more rounds. Well, that's because in these rounds, your text on your action cards is blank. Yeah, get that one through your head. Speaking of increasing the difficulty without having to even change the monster dynamics, boom shakalaka. Did I mention all of these biomes are compatible with all of the previous content as well? Let's go on to the last 3. Next up, going to the next one here. Waltar and the Frozen Waste. Waltar, lava. If you cross over either of these ways, then you take burning damage. Subsequently, based on the round, that's how many cards you got to discard from the top of your deck. Ooh, gonna trigger you in a slightly different way. And the Frozen Waste, we'll turn it around this time. You're going to be having to deal with the freezing effects in these rounds again, because what they do is they make your mastery cards blank, so you can't focus them either. And after you get to round 8, they're blank forever. In the first 3 times, they're only blank for those rounds and they come back, but don't risk going too long in this battle, because otherwise you're going to pay the price. Now, next up is actually my favorite of all of these, the Endless Swamp, as well as the Nightmare. Nightmare here is giving us a different dynamic because you get a token and you have a regular side and a monster side. And when you get flipped over to your monster side, you can't perform or take any effect from assists that are on the board. But you have to play 3 consecutive maneuvers of the same variety in order to flip back, which gives you back your base weapon statistics as well. Hard enough for you? Well, let's talk about the other side in the swamp, because you're going to be dealing with toxic fumes in this case, where we talked about the crystals dropping and helping you. On the consequence, this is different because every round you put down one of the toxic tokens. Toxic token, no big deal, right? I can deal with. No, you can't, because if you ever get 3, meaning someone picks it up when they're in that area at the end of the round, if you ever accumulate 3, you're dead. You're eliminated. Peace out. See you later. But if you're looking for sheer craziness, let's go to the last one. The Goldarks and the Thunder Mountains. So you can see with the Goldarks here, we're doing something crazy. Because what happens in the Goldarks in rounds 2, 5, 8, 9, and 10? Anybody. Anybody. Monsters, heroes, take double freaking damage those rounds. Ooh, living on a knife's edge. Well, let's talk about what the Goldarks are bringing us here too. The Goldarks are giving us something dynamically different if you're a fan of chaos like I am. You want to move in this round? Well, you can do that, but you take damage equal to the monster's aggression level. You can pay for the cost to reduce that. However, it combines the previous Goldarks because on rounds 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, and 10, it also doubles the damage alongside of that. So is that crazy enough for you? There you go. So this is what we've got going on. A little bit of everything. A few new characters, a few new biomes, and a whole difficulty to make you feel like you're taking crazy pills. Is it good? What do you need? What would be my recommendations? Like I said, of the expansions, those last 2 are by far and away my favorites. The Endless Swamp and Nightmare, followed by the Goldarks and Thunder Mountain, then the Crystal Cave in 3rd, in that order for sure. The Nightmare variant for a non-hardcore, get to play it 100 times in a year, it's not necessary. The card box is a very nice organizer, but ultimately the character expansion is actually really freaking intriguing because like I said at the beginning of the video, I love support characters, and the ability to aid my allies in a direct manner and still have some interaction, still be able to do my thing alongside of it slightly to a lesser degree, makes the Wardrem now actually much higher on my character expansion list as a whole. That being said, if you're looking for just 1 or 2 things, I'd still probably go with these biomes, like I mentioned. I think they're going to give you the most bang for your buck. They're nice double-sided neoprene mats, and the boxes are very interesting as well, right? It's almost like a cardboard pizza box that you get from the store. And so they're nice, they'll fit in, but it is a little bit tricky, but you could probably throw these in one of the other boxes if you're clever. This wouldn't be a real Primal video without some warnings. What do you need to know? These are going to be expensive. These are not going to be cheap on top of the already significant cost that Primal is in the first place. And let's talk about the space to go along with that, because that can't be discounted nowadays. This nearly doubles the space size if you keep everything in its original containers. There is some complexity creep. There are going to be different dynamics with each of these, having to manage an additional layer, literally and figuratively, in terms of the content, as well as the complexity creep that goes along with some of these characters, because they require more interaction and more cooperation between players. It's not going to be as necessarily straightforward as you may want if you're looking at these as potentially first buys. The setup time isn't drastically different with the biomes, so that's not a huge downside. So who should definitely stay away from this? This is going to add slightly to the rules overhead. Not drastically, but this game is known for that style of things. This genre as a dungeon crawl or anything in the boss battling is that already. So this is not going to take it away. It's not going to streamline it. It's going to add one or two smaller layers on top of an already, well, thicker stack. This is also not for the infrequent player. None of these are for the person who has not maximized out the core box value in the first place. This is extra whipped cream and cherry on top for lovers of Primal. If you're already a fan of Primal, these expansions potentially are a no-brainer. They offer variety, they offer a challenge, and they offer some relatively brilliant character design. But it doesn't fix the base game's complexity or setup time. It doesn't make it that much different or worse, but it's not going to change those things if that was a barrier in the first place. This is Primal The Awakening turned up to kind of 11. So you just need to be ready for what it is. So there you go. They sent it to me to talk about. Hopefully that was helpful, especially if you're a big Primal fan. Give it a look-see. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. Peace out.